The fluorescent lights of the grocery store buzzed overhead like trapped insects, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow that made the wilted lettuce look even more depressing. I stood in the produce section, fingers hovering over bruised apples, calculating whether I could afford the organic ones, or if I'd have to settle for the conventional. Again. The cold air from the refrigerated cases made goosebumps rise on my arms, visible through the thin fabric of my second-hand cardigan. 3 years of scraping by as a single mother had taught me to count every penny, to make every dollar stretch until it screamed. My daughter's laughter echoed from the cereal aisle where I'd left her comparing cartoon characters on boxes. Emma. My entire world compressed into 4 years of blonde curls and gap-toothed smiles, the reason I worked double shifts at the diner, the reason my hands were permanently wrinkled from dishwater, the reason I existed at all anymore. I reached for a bag of the cheaper apples when I felt it, that prickle on the back of my neck that meant someone was watching. The sensation crawled down my spine like ice water, and I turned slowly, expecting another creep, or maybe Mrs. Henderson from upstairs ready to complain about Emma's footsteps again. Instead, my eyes met darkness, not literal darkness, but the kind that seemed to emanate from a person, like shadows had learned to walk upright and wear $1,000 suits. He stood 3 feet away, perfectly still in a way that felt predatory, his dark eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made my breath catch. Tall, maybe 6'3", with black hair styled in that effortlessly expensive way that probably cost more than my monthly rent. His suit was charcoal gray, so dark it was almost black, tailored to perfection across shoulders that looked like they could carry the weight of kingdoms or corpses. But it was his face that made my fingers loosen on the apple bag. Beautiful in a dangerous way, all sharp angles and full lips that held the ghost of a smile, like he knew a secret about you that you didn't know yourself. A thin scar cut through his left eyebrow, a white line that only added to the sense of barely contained violence that surrounded him like cologne. And speaking of cologne, sandalwood and something darker, richer, like aged whiskey and leather. The scent reached me even across the distance, making my head feel light. You dropped this. His voice was smooth, cultured, with the barest hint of an accent I couldn't place. He held out an apple, one of the organic ones, the expensive kind I'd been avoiding. I blinked, confused. I didn't. You did. Something flickered in his eyes, amusement maybe, or challenge. Just now. I hadn't dropped anything. I was certain of it. But the way he looked at me, like he expected me to take it, like refusing wasn't really an option. I found myself reaching out. Our fingers brushed as I took the apple, and electricity shot up my arm. His skin was warm, surprisingly so, and I jerked back like I'd been burned. "Thank you," I whispered, hating how small my voice sounded. He didn't move, didn't step back to give me space like a normal person would. Instead, his eyes traveled over my face slowly, deliberately, like he was memorizing every feature, every freckle, every sign of exhaustion that no amount of concealer could hide. The attention felt heavy, suffocating, like being pressed between glass slides and examined under a microscope. "Mommy!" Emma's voice cut through the moment like a knife. I turned to see her running toward me, her light-up sneakers flashing with each step. A box of Lucky Charms clutched to her chest like treasure. Panic flared in my chest, an instinct I didn't understand. I moved quickly, positioning myself between Emma and the stranger, my body becoming a shield. When I glanced back, expecting him to still be there, the space was empty. He'd vanished like smoke, like he'd never existed at all, except the apple in my hand was real, solid, expensive. And in the distance, near the store entrance, I caught a glimpse of him sliding into the back of a black SUV with tinted windows. A man in a dark suit held the door for him. Security, my brain supplied, though I didn't know how I knew that. The vehicle pulled away smoothly, silently, like a shark gliding through dark water. "Mommy, can we get these?" Emma tugged on my cardigan, oblivious to the way my heart was trying to hammer through my ribs. "Sure, baby." I set the organic apple back on the pile with shaking hands, grabbing the cheap ones instead. "Let's just get what we came for and go home." But as we made our way through the checkout line, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, and when I pushed our cart into the parking lot, I saw it. The same black SUV, idling 3 rows away, just sitting there, waiting. I loaded our groceries into my beat-up Honda Civic as quickly as possible, my hands fumbling with the bags. Emma chattered about her day at preschool, about the new friend she'd made, about the picture she'd drawn of our apartment building. Normal. Everything was normal. Except it wasn't. The SUV followed us home, not obviously, not aggressively. It stayed back 3 or 4 car lengths, making the same turns I made, stopping when I stopped. By the time I pulled into the crumbling parking lot of our apartment complex, my palms were slick with sweat, despite the evening chill. I grabbed Emma and the groceries, moving quickly toward the building entrance. The SUV pulled in behind me but didn't park. It just waited, watching. "Mommy, you're holding too tight," Emma complained, and I realized I was gripping her hand hard enough to hurt. "Sorry, sweetheart." I loosened my hold, but didn't let go as I fumbled with my keys, dropping them twice before finally getting the door open. Safe. We were safe. I carried the groceries up 3 flights of stairs to our tiny 1-bedroom apartment, my breathing ragged by the time I unlocked our door and rushed inside. Emma ran immediately to her toy corner. Really just a section of the living room where we'd set up her dollhouse and stuffed animals. I went to the window, pulling the curtain aside just enough to peek down at the parking lot. The SUV was gone. Relief and confusion warred in my chest. Maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe I was so tired, so stressed from the constant juggling of bills and shifts and single parenthood, that my brain had invented threats where none existed. I was putting away the groceries when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. My thumb hovered over the screen for a long moment before I opened the message. "You forgot the organic apples. I'll make sure you get better next time. D." The phone slipped from my fingers, clattering on the linoleum floor. Emma looked up from her dolls, concerned. "Mommy?" "It's okay, baby." Mommy just dropped her phone. I picked it up with shaking hands, staring at the message like it might bite me. How did he get my number? How did he know where I lived? Who was he? And why did part of me, some dark, desperate part I didn't want to acknowledge, feel thrilled instead of terrified? I deleted the message and blocked the number, then triple-checked that our door was locked and the chain was in place. Emma needed dinner, a bath, a bedtime story, normal things, safe things. But as I moved through our evening routine, I couldn't stop thinking about dark eyes and expensive suits, about the way he'd looked at me like I was something precious and rare, like I mattered. It had been so long since anyone had looked at me that way, 3 years to be exact. 3 years since my ex-husband, Marcus, had looked at me with anything other than contempt or indifference. 3 years since the divorce, since he'd made it clear that I wasn't enough, pretty enough, interesting enough, worth enough. He'd wanted someone sophisticated, someone who fit into his corporate world of cocktail parties and networking events, not a waitress who smelled like coffee and French fry grease. I pushed the thoughts away as I tucked Emma into our shared bed. I slept on the couch so she could have the bedroom. Her eyes were already drooping as I read her favorite story about a princess who saved herself. "Mommy," she murmured sleepily, "why did that man look at you funny at the store?" My blood ran cold. "What man, baby?" "The one in the black suit. He smiled at you, but it was a weird smile. Like..." She yawned. "Like he was hungry." I kissed her forehead, my lips trembling against her skin. "Just a friendly stranger, sweetheart. Go to sleep." But after she drifted off, I sat in the dark living room, staring at my phone. The blocked number had sent another message. Somehow, impossibly, another message. "You can't block me, Sophia, and you shouldn't try. What's coming for you is inevitable. But don't worry, I protect what's mine." I didn't remember telling him my name. The diner smelled like it always did. Burnt coffee, grease, and the faint underlying note of bleach that never quite masked the other odors. I tied my apron around my waist, the fabric stiff and stained despite my best efforts to keep it clean. My reflection in the metallic napkin dispenser showed dark circles under my eyes, evidence of another sleepless night spent jumping at every sound, checking the locks on the door every hour. It had been 2 days since the grocery store, 2 days of silence from the mysterious number. 2 days of convincing myself I'd overreacted, that he was just some eccentric rich guy with boundary issues, nothing more. "Table 4 needs a refill, Soph," Rita called from behind the counter, her cigarette-roughened voice cutting through my thoughts. She was 50-something, had worked at Mel's Diner for 20 years, and had the kind of world-weary wisdom that came from seeing everything twice. I grabbed the coffee pot and made my rounds, smiling automatically at the regulars. Mr. Peterson with his crossword puzzle, the construction crew from the site down the street, the college students nursing hangovers over hash browns. My feet ached in my worn sneakers, and my lower back had that familiar throb that meant I'd need to ice it tonight. This was my life. Small, contained, safe. The bell above the door chimed, and I glanced up automatically, my customer service smile already in place. It died on my lips. He stood in the doorway like he owned it. Like he owned everything his eyes touched. The same charcoal suit, or maybe a different one, just as expensive. Dark eyes swept the diner, cataloging exits and occupants in a way that made the hair on my arms stand up. Behind him, 2 men in dark suits flanked the entrance. Security, unmistakably. They didn't come inside, just stood there like sentinels, hands clasped in front of them in that universal bodyguard stance. Every conversation in the diner faltered. Even Mr. Peterson looked up from his puzzle, sensing the shift in atmosphere, because that's what happened when someone like him entered a space like this. The air changed, became charged with something electric and dangerous. His eyes found mine across the room, and a slow smile curved his lips. Predatory. Satisfied. He'd found me. My hands trembled, making the coffee pot rattle against the mug I was holding. The construction worker whose coffee I'd been pouring looked up at me, concerned. "You okay, sweetheart?" "Fine," I managed, setting the pot down before I dropped it. "I'm fine." But I wasn't fine, because he was walking toward me now, moving with that fluid grace that spoke of complete physical confidence, of a body trained for violence wrapped in expensive fabric. People instinctively moved out of his way, chairs scraping against linoleum as diners unconsciously leaned back. He slid into an empty booth, my section, of course, and waited. Those dark eyes never left my face. Rita appeared at my elbow, her voice low. "Who the hell is that?" "I don't know," I whispered back, and it was true. I didn't know his name, didn't know what he wanted, didn't know why he'd sought me out. But my body knew something was wrong. Every instinct screaming at me to run. "Well, he's in your section. Better go take his order before he decides to buy the place just to fire you." Rita's attempt at humor fell flat. Even she could sense the danger radiating from the booth. I approached slowly, my order pad clutched like a shield. Up close, he was even more devastating. Those sharp cheekbones, the full lips, the scar through his eyebrow that should have marred his beauty but somehow enhanced it. And his eyes, God, his eyes held depths I didn't want to explore. Darkness that promised both pleasure and pain. "What can I get you?" My voice came out steadier than I expected. "Coffee, black." He leaned back against the worn vinyl, completely at ease despite the grease-stained surroundings that were so far beneath him they might as well be in different universes. "And your time?" "My time isn't on the menu. Everything has a price, Sophia." The way he said my name, like a caress, like a threat, made my stomach flip. "I'd like to discuss yours. I'm working." "I can wait." He pulled out his phone, sleek, expensive, probably cost more than my car, and set it on the table. I'm a patient man when I want something. The implication hung in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. I wanted to tell him to leave, to stop following me, to forget I existed, but the words stuck in my throat because part of me, that traitorous, desperate part, wanted to know what he wanted to feel the weight of his attention for just a little longer. I poured his coffee with shaking hands and retreated to the counter, hyper-aware of his gaze following my every movement. He didn't drink the coffee, didn't order food, just sat there watching me work for the next hour, watching me take orders, deliver plates, refill drinks, clean tables. Every time I glanced his way, those dark eyes were waiting, patient as a spider in its web. The lunch rush came and went. He remained. My shift was supposed to end at 3. At 2:30, Rita pulled me aside, her face worried. "Soph, that guy hasn't moved in 2 hours. Hasn't ordered anything but coffee he's not drinking. Just keeps staring at you like you're something he's planning to consume." I don't like it. I don't either. Want me to call the cops? I almost laughed. Call the cops on a man who clearly had the kind of money and power that made law enforcement irrelevant? A man with professional security waiting outside? And tell them what? That a customer is sitting quietly in a booth? Rita's jaw tightened. Fine. But I'm walking you to your car. At 3:00, I untied my apron with fingers that wouldn't stop trembling. I'd made $73 in tips. A good day, enough to cover Emma's daycare and maybe put a little toward the electric bill. I shoved the cash in my pocket and grabbed my purse from the back room, trying to formulate a plan. When I emerged, he was standing by the door, waiting. The booth was empty behind him, and a $100 bill sat on the table. Payment for a single cup of untouched coffee. "Let me drive you home." It wasn't a request, despite the phrasing. "I have a car." That's falling apart. I noticed the exhaust issue and the bald tires. His voice was matter-of-fact, like he was discussing the weather instead of revealing that he'd inspected my vehicle. "It's not safe." Fear and anger warred in my chest. "You had no right." "I have every right." He stepped closer, and I caught that scent again. Sandalwood and whiskey, intoxicating and terrifying. "You're mine, Sophia. You just don't know it yet. I'm not anyone's." The words came out fierce, stronger than I felt. "I'm not interested. Whatever this is, whatever you think you want, I'm not available. I have a daughter, a life, Emma. 4 years old, attends Little Sunshine Preschool, likes strawberry ice cream and stories about brave princesses." His expression didn't change, but something flickered in those dark eyes. "I know everything about you, Sophia. Where you live, where you work, what time you pick up your daughter, what you order from the Chinese place on Friday nights when you're too tired to cook. I know your ex-husband pays child support sporadically at best, that you're 3 months behind on rent, that you've been skipping meals to make sure Emma has enough." The blood drained from my face. "How?" "Because I wanted to know." He said it simply, like it was obvious. "And when I want something, I learn everything about it, every detail, every vulnerability, every need." Rita appeared beside me, her hand on my arm, protective. "The lady asked you to leave her alone." He didn't even glance at Rita. His eyes stayed locked on mine, burning with an intensity that made my knees weak. "I'm offering you a solution, Sophia. A way out of this." He gestured around the diner with barely concealed disdain. "Existence you're trapped in. I'm not trapped. You're drowning." The words cut because they were true. Working yourself to death for pennies, watching your daughter grow up in poverty, knowing that one medical emergency, one car breakdown, one missed shift could destroy what little stability you've built. That's not living. That's surviving. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "What do you want from me? Have dinner with me. Tonight. Hear what I have to offer." "And if I say no?" Something dangerous flickered across his face, there and gone so quickly I almost missed it. "You won't." He was right, and we both knew it. Because I was desperate, because I was tired, because some dark part of me wanted to know what it felt like to be wanted by someone who looked at me like I was the most important thing in his world. "One dinner," I heard myself say. "That's all." His smile was triumphant, predatory. "I'll pick you up at 7. Wear something nice. I'll have options sent to your apartment within the hour. I can dress myself, Sophia." He reached out, his fingers brushing my cheek so gently it felt like a contradiction to the danger rolling off him in waves. "Let me take care of you. It's what I do." Then he was gone, moving through the door with his security falling into step behind him. Through the grimy window, I watched the black SUV pull away, leaving me standing in the middle of the diner with my heart racing and my world tilting on its axis. "Girl," Rita breathed beside me. What the hell just happened? I didn't have an answer, but when I got home 2 hours later, there were 3 garment bags hanging on my apartment door, each containing a dress that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. Silk and satin in jewel tones, Labels I recognized from magazines I couldn't afford to buy, and tucked inside the first bag, a note in strong, angular handwriting. The emerald green. It matches your eyes. Dante Dante. Finally, a name for the danger that had walked into my life and refused to leave. I should have thrown the dresses away. Should have called the police, gotten a restraining order, protected myself and my daughter from whatever this was. Instead, I hung the emerald dress on my bedroom door and stared at it for an hour, imagining what it would feel like to be someone else for one night. Someone wanted, someone valued, someone who mattered. Emma's daycare teacher had agreed to let her stay late for pizza night, $20 extra I couldn't afford, but would pay anyway. At 6:30, I stood in my tiny bathroom, staring at my reflection. The dress fit perfectly, hugging curves I'd forgotten I had, making my pale skin glow and my eyes look impossibly green. I'd done my makeup carefully, using the expensive products that had arrived with the dresses, foundation that actually matched my skin tone, mascara that didn't clump, lipstick in a shade called Blood Rose. I looked like someone else, someone who belonged in Dante's world. At exactly 7 o'clock, there was a knock on my door. Not the buzzer from downstairs. A knock on my actual door, which meant he'd gotten past the building's security. Of course he had. I opened it and forgot how to breathe. Dante stood in my doorway wearing a black suit that probably cost more than my yearly salary. His dark hair swept back to reveal that perfect, dangerous face, but it wasn't the suit or the face that made my breath catch. It was the way he looked at me, like I was a revelation, like I'd just answered a question he'd been asking his entire life. "Beautiful," he murmured, his voice rougher than before. His eyes traveled down the emerald dress, slow and possessive, leaving heat in their wake. I knew that color would be perfect. "How did you get up here?" My voice came out breathy, uncertain. "The building has security that can be bypassed with the right motivation." He held out his hand, palm up, waiting. "Shall we?" I glanced back at my apartment. Small, shabby, but mine. Safe. The smart thing would be to close the door, call the police, pretend this night had never started. But I'd stopped doing the smart thing the moment I'd put on this dress. I placed my hand in his fingers closed around mine, warm and strong, and electricity shot up my arm. He pulled me into the hallway, then surprised me by stepping closer, his free hand coming up to cup my face. The touch was gentle, reverent even, completely at odds with the danger I knew he represented. "You're trembling," he observed, his thumb stroking my cheekbone. "I'm terrified," I admitted, because lying to him felt impossible. "Good." His smile was dark, satisfied. "Fear means you're paying attention, but you'll learn, Sophia. I would never hurt what belongs to me. And you belong to me now." The possessiveness in his words should have sent me running. Instead, it ignited something low in my belly, something I didn't want to examine too closely. He led me downstairs, his hand never leaving mine, his body positioned slightly in front of mine in a way that felt protective. The black SUV waited at the curb, idling, with the same security personnel from the diner. One of them, tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar down his jaw, opened the back door. "This is Marco," Dante said as he helped me inside. "He's been with me for 10 years. You can trust him with your life." The interior of the SUV was pure luxury. Leather seats softer than my couch, tinted windows that made the outside world seem distant and unreal. Dante slid in beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body, smell that intoxicating cologne. The door closed, sealing us in our own private world. "Where are we going?" I asked, as Marco pulled smoothly into traffic. "Somewhere we can talk without interruption." Dante's hand found my knee, possessive, his palm warm through the silk. "Somewhere you'll be comfortable. I'm not comfortable anywhere near you." His laugh was low, genuine. Honesty, I appreciate that. His fingers traced small circles on my knee, the touch maddeningly distracting. "Most people tell me what they think I want to hear. You tell me the truth. Even when the truth is that you're scaring me?" "Especially then." His expression sobered, those dark eyes boring into mine. "I don't want your fear, Sophia. I want your trust. But trust takes time, and we don't have much of that. What does that mean? Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his jaw tightening, and something dangerous flickered across his face. Excuse me. He answered in rapid Italian, his voice hard and commanding in a way that made my stomach clench. Whatever he was discussing, it wasn't good. He ended the call and returned his attention to me, but the warmth had been replaced by something colder, more calculating. Change of plans. We're going to my estate instead of the restaurant. Your estate? It's more private, more secure. He said it like security was a normal concern for a dinner date, like everyone traveled with armed guards and worried about privacy. Dante, who are you? His smile was sharp, dangerous. You haven't figured it out yet. I'm disappointed. But I had figured it out, or at least part of it. The security, the obvious wealth, the way people moved out of his path, the barely leashed violence that surrounded him like an aura. He wasn't just rich. He was powerful in a way that had nothing to do with legitimate business. I couldn't say it. Couldn't make it real. Careful, Sophia. His hand tightened on my knee, not painful, but firm. Some words, once spoken, can't be taken back. And once you know certain things, you become part of that world whether you want to or not. Fear shot through me, sharp and cold. Let me out. I want to go home. No, you don't. His voice was gentle but implacable. You want safety, security, a better life for your daughter. You want to stop drowning. I can give you all of that. In exchange for what? You. Simple, direct, terrifying. Be mine, Sophia. Completely, wholly mine. Let me protect you, provide for you, give you everything you've been denied. And in return, you give yourself to me. That's insane. I don't even know you. You know enough. The SUV turned onto a private road, trees closing in on either side like a tunnel. You know I want you. You know I'm powerful enough to take care of you and Emma. You know that whatever I am, whatever I do, I keep my people safe, always. My people. Like I was already his, like the decision had been made before I even realized there was a choice. The estate emerged from the trees like something from a movie. Massive stone walls, wrought iron gates that opened automatically, manicured grounds stretching into the darkness. The house itself was a mansion, all modern lines and floor-to-ceiling windows glowing with warm light. This is your home? My voice came out awed despite my fear. One of them. He helped me out of the SUV, his hand on my lower back, guiding me toward the entrance. I have properties in New York, Chicago, Rome, and Sicily. But this is where I stay when I'm in the city. It's the most secure. More security personnel nodded as we passed, each one eyeing me with curiosity. How many people did he employ? How much power did he actually have? Inside, the house was breathtaking. Soaring ceilings, marble floors, art that belonged in museums, but it wasn't cold or sterile. Warm lighting softened the edges, comfortable furniture invited you to sit, and the faint scent of jasmine drifted from somewhere deeper in the house. Are you hungry? Dante asked, leading me through the foyer into a formal dining room where a table was already set for two, candles flickering between place settings that probably cost more than my entire kitchen. I don't understand. I stopped in the doorway, overwhelmed. Why me? I'm nobody. I work in a diner, I live in a falling-apart apartment, I'm a single mother barely keeping her head above water. You could have anyone. Models, actresses, women who actually belong in places like this. Why are you doing this? Dante turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his eyes stole my breath. You want the truth? 3 months ago I saw you at that diner. You were arguing with a customer who'd left you a religious pamphlet instead of a tip, and you were so angry you were shaking, but you didn't cry. Didn't back down. You stood your ground even though you were exhausted and hungry and barely holding it together. And I thought, that's strength. Real strength. Not the performance everyone around me puts on. He stepped closer, his hand coming up to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. Then I watched you walk to your car, counting your tips, and I saw you set aside half before you'd even left the parking lot. For Emma, I learned later. You always put her first. even when it means you go without. And I knew. I had to have you. Had to know what it felt like to be protected by someone like you, to be chosen by someone who doesn't choose easily. That's crazy, but my voice lacked conviction, because his words touched something deep inside me, some desperate need to be seen, to be valued, maybe. His smile was crooked, almost boyish, but crazy is what I do best. Now have dinner with me. Let me tell you what I'm offering, and then you can decide. We sat at opposite ends of the long table, an expanse of polished wood between us. Staff I hadn't seen appeared with plates, filet mignon, roasted vegetables, risotto that smelled like heaven, wine in crystal glasses that caught the candlelight. I picked at the food, too nervous to eat properly, while Dante watched me with those dark, calculating eyes. Your ex-husband, he said suddenly. Marcus Reynolds, director of operations at Thornton Industries. Married his secretary 6 months after your divorce was finalized. My fork clattered against the plate. How do you? I know everything about everyone who touches your life. He cut into his steak with precise movements, including the fact that he hasn't paid child support in 3 months and has filed to reduce his obligations. He claims his new wife is pregnant, and he needs the money for his real family. Rage and humiliation burned through me. I'd known Marcus was behind on payments, but the pregnancy, the real family comment, that was new. Fresh wounds opened, bleeding shame. I can make him pay, Dante continued, his voice casual but his eyes hard. Every penny he owes, plus interest, plus whatever you need for Emma's future. I can make him regret ever treating you as less than you are. Why would you do that? Because you're mine now. He said it like it was obvious, like my belonging to him was simply fact. And no one hurts what's mine without consequences. I haven't agreed to anything, haven't you? He set down his knife and fork, leaning back in his chair. You put on the dress I sent. You got in my car. You're sitting in my home, listening to my offer. You've already said yes, Sophia. You just haven't admitted it yet. Heat flooded my face because he was right. Every step of the way I'd chosen to move forward, to see where this led. Even now, with fear coursing through my veins, I wasn't demanding to leave. What exactly are you offering? My voice came out quieter than intended. Marriage. The word hung in the air between us, heavy and impossible. Marry me, Sophia. Be my wife in every way that matters. And in return, I'll give you security, protection, wealth. Emma will have the best schools, the best opportunities. You'll never worry about money again, never feel invisible or worthless. You'll be the most important person in my world. That's insane. I pushed back from the table, standing on shaking legs. You don't marry someone you just met. You don't marry someone because you watch them count tips in a parking lot. That's not how real life works. In my world, it is. He stood too, moving around the table with that predatory grace. In my world, you see what you want, and you take it. You eliminate obstacles, you protect your assets, you build empires. And you? You're going to be my empire, Sophia. My queen, my everything. He was close now, too close, his hand coming up to cup my face. His thumb brushed across my lower lip, and I felt the touch everywhere, heat pooling low in my belly. 1 year, he murmured, his voice dropping to something dark and persuasive. Give me 1 year as my wife. If you're miserable, if you hate every moment, I'll let you go with enough money to start fresh anywhere you want. But if you stay, his eyes burned into mine. If you choose me, I'll spend every day proving I was worth the risk. And if I say no right now, something dangerous flickered across his face. Then I'll take you home, and you'll go back to your life. But Marcus will still file to reduce child support. Your landlord will still expect the 3 months back rent. Your car will still break down, and eventually you'll drown. He leaned closer, his lips nearly brushing my ear. I'm offering you a life raft, Sophia. Take it. My phone buzzed in the small clutch I'd brought, the only one I owned, a cheap thing I'd bought at Target. I pulled it out with shaking hands. A text from Emma's daycare. Hi, Sophia. Emma is asking when you'll pick her up. Pizza night ends at 8. Please confirm. I glanced at the ornate clock on the mantel. 7:45. In my old life, I'd be rushing to get her. worried about the late fee, stressed about bedtime. In this potential new life, I can have Emma brought here, Dante said, reading my expression. My staff can prepare a room for her. Anything she needs. You can see her, tuck her in, be the mother you've always been. But you don't have to do it alone anymore. Tears burned my eyes. This is too much. Too fast. Life-changing decisions usually are. His hand slid down to my neck, possessive, his thumb stroking my pulse point, but sometimes fast is necessary. Sometimes you have to jump before you can talk yourself out of it, so jump, Sophia. Jump. And I'll catch you. I stood in Dante's palatial dining room, my phone clutched in trembling hands, the weight of an impossible decision pressing down on my chest like a physical force. Every rational thought screamed at me to run, to grab Emma and disappear, to protect us from whatever darkness surrounded this beautiful, dangerous man. But rationality had never paid my rent. It had never filled Emma's belly or kept the lights on or fixed my dying car. I need to see her, I whispered. Before I decide anything, I need to see my daughter. Dante's expression softened, the first genuine tenderness I'd seen from him. Of course. He pulled out his phone, speaking rapid instructions in Italian. Then to me, Marco will bring her here within 20 minutes. The daycare will be compensated for any inconvenience. You can't just... I can. And I did. His hand found the small of my back, guiding me toward a sitting room off the main hallway. Sophia, the sooner you accept what I'm capable of, the easier this transition will be. I have resources, connections, power. I use them to take care of what's mine. I'm not yours yet. His smile was predatory. Yet. I like that you're already thinking in those terms. The sitting room was smaller, more intimate than the cavernous spaces we'd passed through. A fireplace crackled with real flames, casting dancing shadows across leather furniture and built-in bookshelves. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the grounds, now illuminated by security lights that made the manicured lawns glow an otherworldly green. Dante poured amber liquid from a crystal decanter into 2 glasses. Whiskey. Single malt, aged 25 years. It'll help with the nerves. I shouldn't drink if Emma's coming. 1 glass won't impair you. He pressed it into my hand, his fingers lingering over mine. And you need something to take the edge off before I tell you the rest. The rest? My stomach dropped. What rest? He settled onto the leather couch, patting the space beside him. When I didn't move, something flickered in his eyes, amusement mixed with impatience. Sit, Sophia. I don't bite. Not unless you ask me to. Heat flooded my face, but I sat, keeping as much distance between us as the couch allowed. The whiskey burned going down, warming my chest, loosening the knot of anxiety slightly. Your ex-husband, Dante began, swirling his own glass, is more than just a deadbeat father. He's embezzling from Thornton Industries. Has been for 18 months. Small amounts at first, then larger sums as he got confident. He's funneling money through shell corporations to fund his new lifestyle. The house in the suburbs, the luxury cars, the country club membership. I stared at him, the whiskey forgotten. How do you know this? Because I make it my business to know things. His voice was matter of fact, like financial crimes were dinner conversation. And because Marcus made a critical mistake 3 months ago, he started laundering some of that money through a construction company that's under my protection. He didn't know it, of course. Thought he was being clever, diversifying his criminal portfolio. Under your protection, I repeated slowly. Meaning they pay me for the privilege of operating in this city without interference. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement. He took a sip of whiskey, his eyes never leaving my face. When I discovered Marcus's connection to you, I had my people dig deeper. The embezzlement, the fraud, the fact that he's planning to leave the country with his pregnant wife in 6 months to avoid prosecution when Thornton's auditors inevitably discover what he's done. He's going to abandon Emma permanently, Sophia. Run to the Cayman Islands and never look back. The room spun. I set down the whiskey glass before I dropped it, my hands shaking too badly to hold anything. You're lying. I never lie. He shifted closer, his hand coming to rest on my knee. That same possessive touch from the car. I manipulate, I threaten, I destroy. But I don't lie, especially not to you. Marcus is a coward and a thief, and he's going to leave you holding the bag for his crimes if someone doesn't stop him. Someone like you. Exactly like me. His smile was sharp. Marry me, and I'll make sure Marcus pays for everything he's done. The embezzlement will be discovered. The evidence will be irrefutable, and he'll spend the next decade in federal prison. His new wife will divorce him. His assets will be seized, and Emma will never have to see his face again. Or... He paused, letting the alternative hang in the air. You can say no, and I'll let nature take its course. Marcus will disappear. Emma will grow up wondering why her father abandoned her, and you'll spend years trying to explain something you don't understand yourself. That's blackmail. That's reality. His voice hardened. I'm not a good man, Sophia. I've never pretended to be. I've killed people, destroyed lives, built my empire on blood and fear. But I protect what's mine with everything I have. Choose me, and you'll never have to worry about anyone hurting you or Emma again. Choose your pride, your independence, your moral high ground, and you'll watch everything you love crumble. Before I could respond, there was a knock on the door. Marco appeared, and my heart stopped because Emma was with him, her small hand dwarfed by his massive one, her eyes wide as she took in the opulent surroundings. Mommy! She ran to me, and I caught her, pulling her into my lap, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo and the pizza sauce on her shirt. Hi, baby. I kissed her forehead, my eyes burning with unshed tears. Did you have fun at pizza night? Uh-huh. We made our own pizzas, and mine had extra cheese and... She stopped, noticing Dante for the first time. Her small body tensed in my arms. Who's that? This is Mr. Moretti. The name felt heavy on my tongue, dangerous. Dante's entire demeanor changed. The predator vanished, replaced by something softer, almost gentle. He crouched down to Emma's eye level, careful to keep distance between them. Hello, Emma. Your mother told me you like strawberry ice cream. Emma looked at me for permission. I nodded, not trusting my voice. I do, she said shyly. It's my favorite. Mine too. Dante's smile was genuine, transforming his dangerous face into something almost beautiful. Would you like some? My kitchen makes the best strawberry ice cream you've ever tasted. Can I, Mommy? I should have said no. Should have grabbed her and run for the door. Consequences be damned. But I looked into Dante's eyes and saw something unexpected. Sincerity. Whatever he was, whatever darkness lived inside him, his offer to Emma was genuine. Okay, I whispered. But just a small bowl. It's almost bedtime. Dante stood, speaking quietly to Marco, who nodded and held out his hand to Emma. Come on, little one. Let's go find that ice cream. Emma hesitated, looking back at me. You're coming too, right, Mommy? I'll be right here when you get back. I promised. I just need to talk to Mr. Moretti for a few minutes. After they left, silence filled the room like water, suffocating and heavy. Dante poured himself another whiskey, his back to me, shoulders tight with tension. She looks like you, he said finally. Same eyes, same stubborn chin. Don't, my voice cracked. Don't use my daughter to manipulate me. I'm not. He turned, and the raw honesty in his face shocked me. I'm telling you that seeing her, seeing you with her, it only makes me more certain. You're both coming into my life, Sophia. Both under my protection. Emma will have everything she needs, everything she deserves. Private schools, college funds, security that ensures no one ever hurts her. I'll be... He stopped, something vulnerable flickering across his features. I'll be the father Marcus never was. You can't just decide that. I already have. He crossed to me, kneeling so we were eye level. I grew up in violence, Sophia. My father was a monster who ruled through fear and brutality. I watched him destroy my mother slowly, year by year, until there was nothing left of the woman she'd been. I swore I'd never be him, never treat someone I loved the way he treated her. And I haven't. I'm ruthless in business, merciless with enemies. But with you? With Emma? I'll be whatever you need me to be. His hands framed my face, thumbs stroking my cheekbones. I know you're scared. I know this seems insane, but sometimes the insane choice is the right one. Sometimes you have to trust your instincts instead of your fears, and your instincts brought you here tonight, put you in that dress, kept you from running when you had a dozen chances to leave. What if I can't do this? Tears finally spilled over, hot against my cheeks. What if I'm not strong enough to be what you need? You're the strongest person I've ever met. His voice was fierce, certain. You've survived poverty, abandonment, single motherhood, and you've done it with grace. You haven't become bitter or broken. You've protected your daughter, maintained your dignity, kept fighting even when every odd was stacked against you. That's not weakness, Sophia. That's steel wrapped in silk. He kissed my forehead, gentle and reverent. Marry me. Let me prove that choosing me isn't a mistake. Let me show you what your life can be when someone actually values you the way you deserve. Emma's laughter drifted from somewhere deeper in the house, bright and carefree, the sound of my daughter happy, safe, unburdened by the stress that had become our normal. I thought about our apartment with its leaking ceiling and broken heater, about the mounting bills and the constant fear that one emergency would destroy us, about Marcus planning to abandon Emma permanently while I struggled to keep us afloat, and I thought about Dante's offer: security, protection, a life where I didn't have to choose between eating and paying rent, where Emma could have opportunities instead of limitations. 1 year, I heard myself say. You said 1 year to decide if I want to stay. Triumph flashed in his eyes, quickly masked. 1 year. But I'm warning you now, Sophia. I play to win. By the time that year is up, you won't want to leave. You're very confident. I know what I want, and I know how to get it. His smile was dark, promising. And right now, I want you more than I've wanted anything in my entire life. When? The word came out barely above a whisper. Tomorrow. He stood, pulling me up with him, his hands sliding down to my waist. I have a judge who owes me favors. We'll do it here, private ceremony, just us and Emma. Then I'm taking you both somewhere safe while I handle Marcus and secure everything that needs securing. This is crazy, I breathed. But I wasn't pulling away from his touch. The best things usually are. He leaned down, his lips brushing my ear. Say yes, Sophia. Say you'll be mine. Emma's voice called from the hallway. Mommy, this ice cream is amazing. I looked toward the sound of my daughter's joy, then back at Dante's dark, dangerous eyes. Eyes that promised both salvation and damnation, protection and possession. Yes, I whispered and felt my old life shatter like glass. I'll marry you. His kiss was fierce, claiming, a brand of ownership that should have terrified me. Instead, it ignited something wild and desperate in my chest, the feeling of being wanted so intensely that nothing else mattered. When he pulled back, his eyes blazed with satisfaction. Mine, he murmured against my lips. Finally mine. And somewhere in the expensive, beautiful house that would become my new home, my daughter laughed, unaware that our lives had just changed forever. The wedding happened exactly as Dante promised. 24 hours after I'd said yes, I stood in a private chapel on his estate wearing a dress that cost more than my car. Ivory silk that flowed like water, delicate lace at the shoulders, a train that pooled at my feet like spilled moonlight. Emma stood beside me as my flower girl, wearing a miniature version in pale pink, her face glowing with excitement. She didn't understand what was happening. Not really. To her, this was a fairy tale. A princess story come to life, if only she knew the truth. Dante stood at the altar in a black suit, looking every inch the prince from Emma's stories. Beautiful, powerful, terrifying. The judge spoke words I barely heard, my heart pounding so loudly it drowned out everything else. Do you, Sophia Marie Reynolds, take this man? I looked at Emma, at her hopeful face, then at Dante, at the dark promise in his eyes. I do. His kiss as my husband was possessive, thorough, a public claiming that left me breathless, and when he pulled back, his smile was victorious. Mrs. Moretti, he murmured. Mine. The wedding night was a blur of sensations I wasn't prepared for. His hands on my skin, his mouth tracing patterns of fire across my body, his whispered promises of protection and possession tangled together until I couldn't tell them apart. He was gentle but demanding, patient but intense, giving me pleasure I didn't know existed while taking everything I had to offer. And in the morning, when I woke in silk sheets with his arm heavy across my waist, I realized the truth. I'd married a monster, but maybe, just maybe, he was my monster now. 3 weeks into my marriage, I discovered what it truly meant to belong to Dante Moretti. The revelation came on a Tuesday morning, crisp autumn air filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows of our bedroom. No, his bedroom that I now shared. Emma had already left for her new private school, driven by Marco in an armored vehicle that cost more than my childhood home. I stood at the window in a silk robe, watching the gardeners tend to roses I'd never be allowed to touch myself, when Dante's phone rang. He answered in Italian, his voice dropping to that dangerous register I'd learned meant business. Real business. The kind that left bodies in shallow graves. I shouldn't have understood. But 3 weeks of immersion had taught me enough Italian to catch the important words. Traditore, traitor, esempio, example, familia, family. When he ended the call, his eyes found mine in the reflection of the window. You're learning the language. It wasn't a question. Hard not to when everyone around me speaks it. I turned to face him, my heart hammering. What's happening? Someone betrayed me. He stood from the bed, magnificent and terrifying in nothing but black silk pajama pants, his chest bare and marked with scars I'd traced in the darkness. Someone thought they could steal from my operations and disappear before I noticed. And I noticed. His smile was cold. They'll be dealt with by noon. Dealt with. The euphemism sat heavy between us. You mean killed. I mean dealt with. He crossed to me, his hands settling on my hips, pulling me against his body. This is my world, Sophia, the world you married into. I warned you I wasn't a good man. I know. And I did. 3 weeks had shown me exactly what kind of man Dante was. Ruthless in business, protective to the point of obsession with Emma and me, capable of both tenderness and violence in equal measure, but knowing and seeing are different things. Then don't see. His lips brushed my temple. Stay in this house. Focus on Emma. Enjoy the life I've given you. Let me handle the darkness. It was a tempting offer. To retreat into the gilded cage he'd built. To pretend the blood on his hands didn't exist. But I'd learned something else in 3 weeks. I was stronger than I'd believed. Strong enough to face the truth. What happened to Marcus? The question had been burning in my throat since the wedding. You said you'd handle him. Dante's expression shifted, satisfaction replacing the coldness. He was arrested yesterday. Federal agents raided his home at dawn, seized his computers, his files, everything. The evidence of embezzlement is irrefutable. He's looking at 15 to 20 years. Relief and something darker, vindication, flooded through me. And his wife? Filed for divorce within 6 hours. Apparently her love couldn't survive the loss of his stolen fortune. His hand came up to cup my face. Emma will never have to see him again. He has no rights, no claims. She's yours completely now. Ours, he corrected, and the possessiveness in the word made my stomach flip. Why? I whispered. Why do all of this for us? You could have any woman, someone from your world who understands this life. Why choose a broke waitress with a kid? Because you're real. His thumb traced my lower lip. Everyone in my world wears masks, plays games, shows me the face they think I want to see. But you? You've been honest from the beginning. You told me you were terrified. You admitted you were only agreeing because you were desperate. You didn't pretend to love me or even like me. That honesty is worth more than any dowry, any connection, any strategic alliance. He kissed me, slow and deep, tasting of coffee and possession. And because when I first saw you, exhausted and fighting for your dignity in that diner, I recognized something. A survivor. Someone who'd been through hell and refused to break. I wanted that strength for myself. Wanted to protect it, own it, keep it safe from a world that would destroy it. That's not love. But my voice lacked conviction because his words touched something deep inside me. Some desperate need to be seen and valued. Not yet. His smile was dark, confident. But it will be. I told you, Sophia. I play to win, and I'm going to make you love me if it's the last thing I do." A knock on the door interrupted us. Marco's voice, carefully neutral. "Boss, we have a situation." Dante's jaw tightened. "Give me 5 minutes." After Marco's footsteps retreated, Dante turned back to me, his expression serious. "I need to handle something. Stay in the house today. Don't go anywhere without Marco or one of my other men. Understood?" Fear prickled down my spine. "Why? What's wrong?" "Nothing you need to worry about." He kissed my forehead. "Just a loose end from the past trying to cause problems. I'll handle it." But the tension in his shoulders told me it was more than a loose end. This was dangerous, even for him. He dressed quickly, black suit, shoulder holster I'd learned to pretend I didn't see. The transformation from my husband to something darker and more lethal happening in minutes. At the door, he paused, looking back at me with an expression I couldn't read. "If something happens," he started. "Don't." I crossed to him, surprising myself with my boldness. "Don't say goodbye like you're not coming back." His smile was genuine, tender. "There she is, my fierce wife." He pulled me close, breathing in the scent of my hair. "I'll be back by dinner. And Sophia?" I meant what I said. "You're mine. Nothing and no one will ever change that." Then he was gone, and I was alone in the massive house with only my fears for company. The day crawled by with agonizing slowness. I tried to distract myself, helped Emma with homework when she returned from school, played dolls in the elaborate playroom Dante had created for her, attempted to read in the library. But my mind kept circling back to Dante, to the danger he'd walked into, to the very real possibility that he might not come home, and the terrifying realization that the thought of losing him made my chest ache. Somewhere in the past 3 weeks, he'd become more than my ticket to security, more than the monster I'd married out of desperation. He'd become something I wasn't ready to name. At 6 o'clock, Marco appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. "Mrs. Moretti, I need you and Emma to come with me." Ice flooded my veins. "Why? Where's Dante?" "There's been an incident. The boss wants you somewhere more secure until it's resolved." "What kind of incident?" "The kind I can't discuss." His hand went to his weapon, a gesture that terrified me more than his words. "Please, ma'am. We need to move now." I grabbed Emma, who sensed the tension and clung to me, her small body trembling. Marco led us through the house to a garage I hadn't known existed, filled with vehicles that ranged from luxury sedans to armored SUVs. He ushered us into one of the latter, and 2 more security personnel climbed into the front seats. "Where are we going?" I demanded as the vehicle pulled out. "Safe house, 20 minutes outside the city." Marco's eyes scanned the streets constantly, his body tense. "The boss has enemies who made a move today. They failed, but there might be retaliation. This is precautionary." "Is he hurt?" Marco's hesitation told me everything. "He's operational." Operational. Not fine, not safe, operational. Like he was a machine still functioning despite damage. The safe house turned out to be another mansion, slightly smaller but no less fortified. I'd barely gotten Emma settled in a bedroom when my phone rang. Dante's name flashed on the screen. "Are you safe?" His voice was rough, strained. "Yes, Marco got us out." "Dante, what happened?" "A rival family thought they could take me out, eliminate the competition." A pause, the sound of movement. "They were wrong, but it was closer than I'd like." "Are you hurt?" "Nothing that won't heal." Another pause. "I need you to stay there tonight. I have to finish cleaning up this mess. Make sure there are no more threats. But Sophia, I need you to know, if something had happened to me today, everything would have gone to you and Emma. The houses, the money, the legitimate businesses. You would have been protected, provided for. Always." Tears burned my eyes. "Don't talk like that. I'm a realist. In my world, death is always one mistake away." His voice softened. "But knowing you and Emma are safe, that you're mine to protect, it makes me more careful, makes me want to survive every fight, every threat, every enemy, because I have something worth coming home to now. Dante." My voice cracked. "I love you, Sophia." The words fell between us like stones into still water, creating ripples I felt in my chest. I know it's too soon. I know you married me for security, not affection, but I need you to know. I love you. I love Emma. You're my family now, and I protect my family with everything I have. The words stuck in my throat, too big and terrifying to release. You don't have to say it back. He sounded almost gentle, but I needed you to know, in case... Stop. I sat on the edge of the bed, my free hand pressed to my chest where my heart threatened to burst through. Just come home to us. Safe. That's all I need right now. I will. A promise, dark and binding. I always will. He ended the call, leaving me alone with Emma's soft breathing from the next room and the weight of his confession pressing down on my shoulders. I love you. 3 words that changed everything. 3 words that made me realize I'd been lying to myself for weeks. Because somewhere between the grocery store and the wedding, between fear and fascination, between desperation and desire, I'd started falling for the monster who'd claimed me. Dante returned the next morning, looking like he'd walked through war. A cut above his eyebrow, bruises darkening his jaw, his suit jacket missing, and his shirt stained with blood, but alive. Whole. Mine. I met him at the door, Emma still sleeping upstairs, and without thinking, I threw myself into his arms. He caught me, always caught me, his grip tight enough to bruise. I was so scared, I whispered against his neck. I know. His hand stroked my hair, soothing. But I told you. I always come back. I pulled away enough to look at his face, at the evidence of violence that marked his beautiful features. What happened? The Castellano family made their move. They thought taking me out would let them absorb my territories. His smile was dark, satisfied. They're regretting that decision now. The ones who survived, anyway. I should have been horrified, should have recoiled from the casual mention of death. Instead, I reached up and touched the cut above his eyebrow gently. You need medical attention. I need you. He caught my wrist, his thumb pressing against my racing pulse. I need to know you're real, that this isn't something that's going to disappear. I'm not going anywhere. The admission felt like jumping off a cliff. You were right, Dante. About me already choosing you. I've been choosing you every day since I said yes. I just wasn't ready to admit it. His eyes blazed. Say it. Fear tried to choke the words, but I pushed through it. I think I'm falling in love with you. Not with the money or the security, but with you. The man who sends my daughter to the best school but makes sure her lunch includes her favorite cookies. The man who holds me at night like I'm precious. The man who's terrifying and gentle in equal measure. That's who I'm falling for. His kiss was desperate, claiming, pouring 3 weeks of restrained emotion into one moment. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine, his breathing ragged. You're mine, he murmured. Say it. I'm yours. And meaning it, finally meaning it completely. We both are, Emma and me. Your family. Something fierce and possessive flashed across his face. My family, he repeated. Mine to protect, mine to provide for, mine to love. His hand slid to my stomach, spreading wide and warm. And maybe someday, we'll make this family bigger, give Emma a sibling, build something that belongs to us, alone. The image sent heat flooding through me. Children with Dante's dark eyes and my stubbornness. A house full of laughter instead of fear. A future I hadn't dared to imagine. Someday. I agreed. And felt the last of my resistance crumble. The year that Dante had promised me passed in a blur of discovery and growth. I learned his world. The territories he controlled, the people who owed him loyalty, the careful balance between legitimate business and the darker operations that funded our life. I learned to navigate the social dynamics of mafia wives, to hold my own at dinners where every woman was assessing my worth, to stand beside Dante with my head high. Emma thrived, blossoming in her new school, making friends, never once asking about the father who'd abandoned her. She called Dante, Dante at first, then slowly, naturally, it became Papa. The first time she said it, I watched this powerful, dangerous man's eyes fill with tears. And I learned what it meant to be loved by Dante Moretti, to be cherished and protected and desired with an intensity that should have been suffocating but instead felt like freedom. He kept his promise. I never worried about money, never felt invisible, never doubted my value. When the year mark arrived, he didn't mention it, but I did. "It's been a year," I said one night as we lay in bed, his arm around me, our legs tangled together in the darkness. "I know." His voice was carefully neutral. "Are you leaving?" I rolled to face him, seeing the vulnerability he tried to hide. "No, I'm staying, not because of the money or the security, but because I love you. Because you're my husband in every way that matters. Because this is my life now, and I don't want any other." Relief flooded his features. "Thank God," he breathed, pulling me closer. "Because I would have spent the rest of my life convincing you if you'd tried to leave." "I know." I kissed him, pouring a year's worth of emotion into it. "You're very persuasive." His laugh was low, dark. "You have no idea, Mrs. Moretti." 6 months later, I stood in the bathroom of our master suite, staring at a positive pregnancy test with shaking hands. Fear and joy warred in my chest. Fear because bringing a child into Dante's dangerous world felt terrifying. Joy because this baby would be born from love, not desperation. I found him in his office, reviewing reports with that focused intensity that made him so formidable. When he looked up and saw my face, he was on his feet instantly. "What's wrong?" I held out the test, unable to find words. Understanding dawned slowly, followed by an expression of such pure joy it transformed him. "You're pregnant?" "Yes." Tears spilled over. "I know the timing isn't perfect, and your world is dangerous, and—" He crossed to me in 3 strides, his hands framing my face. "It's perfect. You're perfect. This baby, our baby, is perfect." He kissed me, tender and reverent. "I'm going to protect all of you. You, Emma. This baby. Nothing will ever hurt my family, I swear it." And looking into his dark, fierce eyes, I believed him. The baby came 8 months later, a boy with Dante's dark hair and my green eyes. We named him Luca, after Dante's grandfather who'd helped him escape the worst of his father's violence. Emma was instantly smitten, hovering over her baby brother with protective devotion that made my heart ache. 2 years after I'd said yes to a dangerous stranger in a grocery store, I stood in the garden of our estate, watching Dante teach Emma to tend the roses, while Marco held baby Luca a safe distance away. The sun was setting, painting everything gold, and for a moment, everything was perfect. "Happy?" Dante's voice came from behind me, his arms circling my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder. "Yes." Simple, honest, true. "I never thought I could be this happy. I told you I'd prove you made the right choice." His lips brushed my ear. "Still think marrying me was insane?" I turned in his arms, looking up at the face that had terrified me once, but now represented safety, love, home. "Completely insane," I agreed. "And the best decision I ever made." His kiss was soft, sweet, tasting of promises kept and futures built. "Mine," he murmured against my lips. "Yours," I confirmed, "always yours." And in the fading light, surrounded by the family we'd built from desperation and desire, I finally understood what Dante had known from the beginning. Sometimes the craziest risks lead to the greatest rewards. Sometimes monsters make the best protectors. And sometimes a chance encounter in a grocery store can change your entire world. 3 months later, I ran into Marcus outside a courthouse where he was being transferred between facilities. He looked smaller somehow, diminished by prison jumpsuits and defeat. His eyes widened when he saw me. Designer clothes, professional styling, the confidence that came from being loved and valued. "Sophia?" He stumbled over my name, disbelief written across his features. "What are you doing here? Watching justice being served." I kept my voice cold, distant. "How's prison treating you, Marcus?" His face twisted. "You look different. What happened to you?" "I got married." I held up my left hand, showing him the wedding band that probably cost more than he'd embezzled. "To someone who actually values Emma and me." "Married?" He laughed, bitter and sharp. "Who'd want a broke waitress with a kid?" Dante's car pulled up then, the black SUV with tinted windows, Marco at the wheel. and Dante himself stepped out, moving to my side with that predatory grace, his hand settling possessively on my lower back. Marcus's face went white. "Dante Moretti," he breathed, recognition and terror mixing. "You married. Oh, God." "Still single, I guess?" I repeated his words from years ago, the ones that had cut so deep. "Actually, no. I married a man who knows my worth, who provides for his family, who would never abandon his children." I leaned closer, making sure he heard every word. "Thank you, Marcus, for being such a terrible husband that I was desperate enough to take a chance on someone better. Best decision I ever made." Dante's smile was sharp, dangerous. "Mr. Reynolds, I'd say it's a pleasure, but I don't lie to irrelevant people." His arm tightened around me, claiming and protective. "Enjoy your accommodations. I made sure you got a cellmate who really values family loyalty. He's going to have fascinating conversations with you about men who abandon their children." Terror flashed across Marcus's face as guards pulled him away, back toward the transport vehicle. I watched him go, feeling nothing but satisfaction. "Feel better?" Dante asked as we climbed back into the SUV. "Much." I settled against him, breathing in his familiar scent. "Thank you for everything." "You never have to thank me for protecting what's mine." He kissed my temple. "Now, let's go home. Emma's been asking when we'll be back, and Luca needs his evening feeding." Home. Not my apartment with its leaking ceiling. Not the life of struggle and desperation. Home was Dante's estate, our children, the family we'd built from impossible odds. As Marco pulled away from the courthouse, I looked back one last time at Marcus being loaded into the prison transport. My ex-husband who'd thrown away everything. And then I looked at Dante, my husband who'd given me everything. "I love you," I said, simple and true. His smile was genuine, tender. "I know. And I love you. Forever, Sophia. You're stuck with me now." "Good," I murmured, meaning it with every fiber of my being. "That's exactly where I want to be." The SUV carried us home through the fading light, toward the life I'd chosen, the family I'd built, the love I'd found in the most unlikely place. And for the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving, I was living.